Ahoy, hoy, my friends. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever in the world you may be. As I record this video, good day to all. It's a pleasure to be with you today. My name is Turgon, the wise guy, and I am creating a new video for you today with only one agenda item, and I'll create a second video that will continue this agenda. Today, I'm going to talk through a bunch of commanders for the good side. And I might not be right about everything that I say, but it's based upon my experience and the gear that I have and what I've seen and what I've faced. And I'll do the same thing for the evil side in another video that I'll post later. Although I will just preface and caveat this by saying my experience playing as evil is limited to one season, while my experience playing against evil is much greater. So you have to kind of take what I say about evil with a grain of salt because I'm more used to fighting them than I am fighting as them. So there may be very experienced evil players that watch that video that disagree with me, and I look forward to hearing your feedback in that video. Now, in this video, I'm going to go over a number of commanders on the good side, and I'm only going to go over the ones that I'm really familiar with. So I don't use Gandalf the White, I don't use Thranduil, I don't use Dane yet. I know Dane is an amazing commander, and I need to get on board the Dane train. But he's not quite there yet. I don't have the gear for him. And even though he is rep 6, I'd really like to get him up to like rep 10 before I start using him. So it's a work in progress. It's an area of opportunity. It's a project. I'm going to talk through Galadriel, but I'm going to, be talking through how I use her with just all purple gear. I have seen other people use her with all gold gear, and she can be quite ridiculous and effective indeed. Also, I've seen people use her that have her at max reputation 25, while mine is at 9. So there's some big differences there, and that's one of the reason I'm pointing this out to you is because what you can do with commanders, really any commander, but particularly a commander like Galadriel, between rep 9 and rep 25 is drastic. I mean, that is a difference of 16 points that somebody with max rep can use that I can't. So that is filling an entire title or maxing 2 skills and still having a couple points to spare. It's really significant. So rep plays a huge impact in what you can and can't do with commanders. I'm going to talk through Elrond. I'll talk through Gil Galad. I am not going to talk through Aragorn. Certainly not talking about Círdan here, this guy. I have played around a little bit with Treebeard. As you can see here, I'm goofing around with him a little bit while I'm in Bag End with the Red Book. And I'll talk about him real briefly. Isildur, he's my main man. Isildur and Elrond are going to be the two that I focus on heavily. I'll talk a little bit about Aragorn II. I'll just refer to him as A2, whereas Aragorn, King of Men, I usually refer to him as Kom, KOM, which can easily be confused as the the King of Men campaign. But we're not talking about campaigns; we're talking about commanders. So, not talking through Aemir, not talking about Arwen, not talking about Legolas. We'll talk about Gimli. We'll talk about Gandalf. We'll talk about Theoden. We will not talk about Frodo, although as you can see, I love to troll with him a little bit. You can do the old Frodo bomb with him. It's pretty fun. Not going to talk through Denethor or his tomato. Balin, all I'm going to say is if you don't have Retaliate on Balin, you shouldn't be using him. That's all I know about him. And I have Retaliate now, but I don't have the rest of the gear that I really can use to use him without taking it away from someone else. So I'm not going to really be talking about him. I just conveyed all the thoughts I'm gonna give you on him. Not talking through this guy or 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 this guy. I will talk through Faramir, Dwalin, and then everyone else is a no. Is a nope. Let me start with Dwalin. I'm going to go now since I've just spent about 2 minutes talking about all the things that I'm not going to talk about or talk about. Let's actually start talking about them. You're like, yes, thank you, Will. Shut up. Turgon Will, you know my name is Will from my channel, and I play Turgon the Wise in game. And this is my Dwalin. He is not a commander that I use a lot. I use him usually more earlier in the season since I have him at rep 14. He gets points, and I use him for PvE. Now, this is the PvP build that I'm showing you here. You want to prioritize hunt down over collaboration. I know a lot of people think that collaboration is better because Dwalin is a DD com and this increases your commander's damage. But hunt down, after the commander attacks against enemy target, the damage dealt plus 11.2%, effect modified by might stat for 2 rounds, up to 2 stacks. So 11.2 times 2 is 22.4%. So you're increasing. I don't know. I love Hunt Down. So I know that this looks bigger, but this is affecting only the normal attacks, whereas this is like affecting all of his damage for 2 rounds by 22.4%. It's it's huge to me. But test it both ways. Just because I like it this way doesn't mean that you have to do it the way that I do it. You can do it however you want, but I recommend testing it both ways and seeing what performs better for you in a variety of different scenarios. Like I said, this is the PvP build where you've got all these points: endurance, blood, whirlwind, all in, hunt down, experience warrior, collaboration, and you want warrior of the lonely mountain so that you're reducing the physical damage on your army by 15%. That's pretty significant, and also negative 50% burn damage received. That's really significant when you're fighting guys like Denethor. No, I'm just kidding. You don't really face Denethor. But like, Witch Kings and stuff like that, when you're facing a lot of burn damage, that can be really significant. For a PvE build, the way that I use him early in the season is basically I'm trying to max out musician. I'll do like, since you start off the season at level 5 and he's at rep 14, that gives him 19 points to start plus the 4 from um what's it called? This impart wisdom. You get 4 points for that. So that gets me 23 points to start the season. So I'll put like 10 here. And I'll put 1 here to remove debuff. That's 11. And I'll put some points here, 5. So that gets me to 16. Right? And then I'll do 2 here and 1 up here to get Hunt down on the books. So he has some increased damage. But really, all in all, you're trying to early in the season just reduce damage and increase your healing as much. You want to reduce loss as much as possible. So here now I have, what do I got? 16 plus 3, it's 19. So I still got 4 more points. So I'll do 2 more here, 1 more here, and dump another point in here. So this is how I'll start my season out with Dwalin from a skill perspective. Um, to go through his items, I mean, his items aren't the sexiest. What you really want is the gigantic hammer with frenzy, and then he just absolutely becomes a bonkers commander in all ways. Whether you're using him for tiling or for PvP, it's absolutely the best in slot weapon for him, and it transforms him from a very good commander to a ridiculous commander. I use the Scale Mail with Melee Vigor for him. I use the Bone Mask with Hysteria. This gives you defense and mitigates, damage received by your melee units. This gives your army more HP. and the hysteria is always a nice to have. And right now I just chuck this on him, but there's a variety of different ways you can go with him. You can put, the Entrot Calabash, or just call this Ent Soup. A lot of my friends call this Ent Soup, so I'm just going to call it Ent Soup because it's way easier than saying this every single time. Um, Not sure what trait you necessarily want on him. I'll probably be using this one if I ever use it, but what you really want to do is upgrade this to 5 stars so you benefit from the +6 HP stat. And the might is obviously very good for him as well. But I know a lot of guys that use Dwalin that use all gold gear on him and have the frenzy hammer on him, and he is absolutely insane. Stuff like using the mithril coat with tactical maneuvers is a great way to go. There's also, I think, this guy, the Durin's plate. This is a great way to go for him because you're probably going to be using dwarf units on him. So you increase the HP by them even more, and the fortitude of the dwarves, get that upgraded, not upgraded, but refined, and that's going to mitigate a bunch of damage for you. So that's probably a best in slot. And then there's other helmets that you can use. I think there's a dwarf helmet. I forget what it's called. Um, the casket, something like that. It looks like the helmet that Gimli wore in the movies. I don't have one. I don't focus on dwarves. I'm not I love dwarves, but I don't love dwarves enough to use them yet. So yeah, and we talked about the Entwash Kabalash. You can always try to see. I think there's a warrior box knowledge you might want to try on him. Again, that boosts HP and might, so that might be a good option. The Erebor's Pride is always a good option. Again, more HP for dwarves, so at max this gives you 6. That might actually be even better than the Entwash and Soup gives you the might as well. And then if you have the Iron Guard trait, then you're giving him more heals on top of his skills. So definitely a good way to go. Excellent, excellent commander. Arguably one of the best T1 commanders for the good side in the game. Next to this guy, Faramir, who I'm going to talk through next. Faramir is also a ridiculous T1 commander for a variety of reasons. But again, I don't recommend really using him without his unique. Just to go back to Dwalin, don't bother with his unique. His unique kind of sucks. And I'll show you why. And it's because of this 20% chance of damage dealt. 20% sucks, all right? Getting a 20% chance, that means you're going to only get it to proc probably twice out of 10 rounds. Like, maybe you'll get it more, but probably you won't. I mean, on average, you're going to get this to proc 2 times out of 10 in a 10 round battle. And it just doesn't do enough. Whereas the Frenzy Hammer, we go back to this guy, and let me just pull this up. No, sorry, I can't do it from here. I got to go to the item in my bag. Sorry about that. Special effect. Frenzy. 90% chance to gain follow-up, but the damage dealt of each normal attack is negative 50%. It's huge. 90%. This is every round. So it's way stronger than his unique item. And the proof's in the pudding. All right, back to Faramir. Faramir is really a commander you kind of need his unique chest because this trait is ridiculous. The first 2 rounds, Faramir and all allied range units gain initiative. So when you're playing with like Arnor, and you have the Rangers of the North unlocked, you can use an all ranged build on him, and they all get initiative. Plus, their damage is increased by 49.9%. We'll just round that up to 50%. And you get all these like plus 12 defense to men, and you get all this might, focus, and speed. And as you can see here, Faramir is a balanced commander, so you want his stats to be balanced. I love the Mirkwood bow on him. I actually prefer this item on him more than the gigantic hammer. Because with ranged might plus 9% damage to ranged units, plus 3 to the base attack of ranged units, and you get the might and the speed. Whereas over here with a maxed out gigantic hammer, you're going to get more might and you're going to get more attack, and then the rend would be nice for sure. But when I tested them against this, I used to have this maxed out, a max upgrade, and I just really liked the Mirkwood bow better. I felt like, granted, I was testing against Rem book armies, which is not the same as being in PvP scenario, but I just felt like the Mirkwood bow outperformed the gigantic hammer. If I'm going to put the gigantic hammer on someone else, it's, I'm playing around with it on Treebeard right now, but I'm probably going to put it on Gandalf once I get it up to speed, and unless I get the frenzy hammer. Then once I get the frenzy hammer, it goes on Dwalin. Trapper's Hood, have the ranged vigor on here for now. This would be if I was playing Arnor and I had that Rangers of the North and all of my units are ranged units, then you want to use the ranged vigor. If you're not playing Arnor and you're not using an all ranged build, you're going to probably want to go with Hysteria there, because I think over the course of 10 rounds, it's going to be more impactful. Test it, see what you like. But again, it gives him focus, it gives him speed, it's increasing the base stat of ranged attack by 3. So I get 3 from this, I get 3 from this, and I get 3 from this. Plus 50% in the first 2 rounds. And pursuit, 90% chance for pursuit the first 3 rounds. So really, really big. The first 3 rounds is a big onslaught. And then you look at Rangers of Ithilien, it goes off in round 2, and then in the next round, all allied units gain initiative. So you get initiative the first 2 rounds on your ranged units from the cloak, and then the third round, all your units get initiative from Rangers of Ithilien. So their first 3 rounds, you get free initiative from that item and this skill. It's huge. And then you get pursuit the first 3 rounds from the fireworks that stack on top. 90% chance of pursuit over the course of the first 3 rounds. Some people might say, well, why don't you just use foresight? Because I think that 90% chance of pursuit over the first 3 rounds is better than 70% chance of pursuit over the first 4 rounds. So the first 4 rounds, you're probably only going to get it 3 out of 4 rounds at 70% chance, whereas 90% chance over the first 3 rounds, you're probably going to get it. You're going to always get it at least 2 out of 3 rounds, and some of the time, probably even most of the time, you're going to get it all 3 rounds. And I just think it's better. And then this is the way that I build him. I'm not going to show you my early game build. I'm just going to show you my end game build here if I ever got him to 50. You want Rush so that this helps poke anyone using Pursuit away. I'm sorry, Evasion. Well, of course, with Pursuit, it doesn't matter. It'll go right through it. But if your Pursuit doesn't proc, then Rush will take that Evasion, down a tick. Armed Escort, you always want as well. You want the heal effect from this. That's more significant than you think. I've seen Faramir heal for over 20,000, 26,000 sometimes. And yeah, it's not as sexy as Galadriel healing for 6-digit numbers, but 26,000 heals is significant over the course of 10 rounds. You want the guide. This stacks the 45% damage, stacks with the unique that buffs your range damage by 50%. So this guide plus the unique boosts your over the first 2 rounds your ranged units damage by 95%, plus the 9% from the Mirkwood bow boosts it up to 104%. It's absolutely massive. Gallant, might and speed, nobility, another 21%, and air. The air is nice. It stacks once per round, defense +7. But really, you're putting points in the air to get to nobility. And then Gallant should be prioritized probably last. You want Rush over Gallant. And if you're facing range units, obviously toggle between Rush and flanking. Or if you want, you can put points in both and just not max them out. What you do with your points is up to you. This is just the way that I like to kind of leave him. So that's Faramir in a nutshell. Let me know what you think about my review of these two commanders in the comments below. Let's move on. Let's go to Theoden. Now, Theoden, I really don't use him heavily, but last season was the first season I really used him. I kind of used him as my third or maybe even fourth commander. The thing that I don't like about Theoden is you need to use horses on him for obvious reasons. He's the horse master, but the horses cost more to conscript and they take longer to conscript. So I liked when you get to like end game level and you have 4 queues to conscript units, I would go on a rotation. And I have another video that kind of shows and shares my thoughts on this that you should definitely check out. Um, so I'm not prioritizing horse units for Theoden. I'm prioritizing units that I need to run my mains. And my mains really are Elrond, Isildur, and then I would say I would prioritize Gimli over Theoden because with Gimli you're going to be conscripting guardians and other units that are cheaper to make and you can make them more quickly, so that you can leverage that. I need that DD com, you know, because Elrond's you're doing elf damage, and Isildur you're doing kind of a combo of men and elf damage. Probably more so men because I use Dunedain build, so I'm relying on his Dunedains, and I'll talk through that in a minute. But in some situations, Isildur, I have sentinels in the back. If I'm facing a more melee heavy army as opposed to a ranged heavy army, the Dunedains aren't going to shine as much against that going melee versus melee, but that the sentinels will come online and still do some pretty solid damage for him in that scenario. Um, so I'm prioritizing those kind of units, and then I need something to balance all that army damage out. So I like using Gimli as a third. So Theoden would be my fourth for PvP because of the horses, and it takes a long time and it costs more to conscript horses. But this is the gear that I'm running on him. I use the might, I use the speed, and then it increases the attack of melee units. Cavalry are obviously melee units, base stat by 3, plus the trait 9% damage increase to all melee units. So that's huge. I go with melee vigor on the quilted armor. Why quilted armor and why not focus protection? Well, first off, focus protection sucks unless you're facing one of basically two commanders. Predominantly, the two commanders you're going to be facing that deal focus damage are either going to be Galadriel or Sauron. Sure, there's other commanders that do focus damage, but those are the two big ones that you got to watch out for that get used more predominantly than the others. So I prefer to use melee vigor and just reduce all damage received by melee by 6% because I think it has more utility. Plus, I like the quilted armor because of this might, focus, and speed. These base stats are more important to Elrond than pretty much any of these other chess pieces that you see here. You might want to consider the Warborn battle plate. This is nice because it gives you, speed here. It's giving the speed to the units though, not the commander. So, not sure, what trait you would want to use on this, but I do see people using this Warborn battle plate quite a bit. You could also think about using the Superior Hauberk. This is a gut call. Like if you're going up against a Witch King, you're going to definitely want the fire protection. So, um, next we go to the Horseman Helm, and I use Resolve. You want to protect him from madness so that he doesn't blow himself up. Mirror's Reigns. It's just a huge. So I'm increasing the base staffer plus 6 HP is enormous. Plus 3 attack, plus 3 attack. Defense here. All this might focus speed. All of this combination of items is really potent. And then the Might of Cavalry plus 10% that stacks with the 9% for the melee. It's just he deals a lot of damage. He deals a lot of damage, and then you go to his skill build. His skill build is so stupid easy that I don't understand how people mess this up. It's like embarrassing how bad. Like when I see people with bad Theoden skill builds, it just I don't understand what people are thinking. I don't like putting a point up here because it gives the commander initiative, not the units. So what are you getting out of Theoden going first every round? Sure, the plus 4.2 speed is okay, but you can get so much more out of that 1 point somewhere else. Horsemaster, more attack to mounted units. Base, 15 attack to base? Are you kidding me? And then another plus 5 HP to mounted units when you max this out? It's insane. And then, of course, Chaotic Retreat is just a very broken skill. Next, you want to go to the heal and give him the heal each round. And then you want to go into Rohirrim, which increases his damage and then the damage received by mounted units. After you have maxed out this, and this, then you come over here and put whatever points you got left into mounted combat. Now, if you have a higher rep level Theoden at this point, after you max out mounted combat, because I'm at rep 11, so that gives me 14 more points to play with. So if you're like rep 20 with him and you've got 9 more points to play with, you finish this out, you got 8 more points to play with. You could put it in cleave, you could put it in flanking. There's no right or wrong answer here. It's kind of situationally dependent. You might also want to consider the renewed, but it is a pretty low chance to remove a debuff. Yeah, so if you have them like rep 25, you could probably mostly max this out with this very same build. And that could be very, very nice for you. So let me know what your thoughts are on Theoden. Here's my Gimli. You definitely want the unique on Gimli because it gives him pursuit once he reaches focus 100. And pursuit on your commander is sweet. So then he'll cut through anyone with evasion like a warm knife through butter. It's great versus Gil Galad. It's great versus Undying. It's great versus Grima. And these other things are nice too. Plus 6% for might. I mean, his might's over 400 at this level. So you're getting 12% more damage dealt from him. And this goes up incrementally each time you refine the item. Oh, God, I can't wait to refine this item again. Then it'll go up to 8%. 8 plus 8 is 16. 12 to 16%. That's a huge increase. Just a huge, huge increase. I like the Superior Hauberk on him. You can toggle it if you're fighting good. You can switch it over to Melee Vigor. Against Evil, you're going to probably want to have the burn damage protection in case you hit a Witch King. But the defense to the army is nice, and then the might is obviously nice as well. I love the Brutal Helmet on him. I also prefer Melee Vigor on this, so you can stack the Melee Vigor from this with Melee Vigor on this, and that gives you 12% reduced damage to your melee units from those two traits. Plus, you're increasing the HP of your melee units. I only use melee units on Gimli. And then the Might Speed is also excellent for him. And then the Heath Lane, you can toggle this. If you're going up against Gundabad or a lot of Orcs, you're going to want to use the Bane of Orcs trait here. So then they'll receive 18% additional damage from all sources. This is not a buff for your damage. It increases the damage they take. 6 of one, half a dozen of another to some, but it does mean something else. And then this plus 3 HP stacks with this plus 3 HP, so you're increasing the survivability. Now, if you're not facing orcs, you're going to probably want to switch this over to the healing trait, whatever that's called. I forget what it is off the top of my head. From a skill perspective, you want Lord of Glittering Caves 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you max out Doran's Blood Tree, and then you max out this tree, and then you're done. There's a specific order you want to do them in so that the skills go off in a specific order. I'm not going to go through this in this video. That content is out there all over the place, and most experienced players are already aware of it. If you're not aware of it, go look for it. It's out there. You'll find it. Gandalf, I only really use him right now for PvE. I don't PvP with him because I just have better solutions for PvP than him. I know a lot of people that do PvP with Gandalf. I'm not saying don't PvP with Gandalf, but I don't PvP with Gandalf. This is how I have his skills configured. I max out Mithrandir. Early in the season, it's very different. I go for the healing so that I'm mitigating troop loss. If I'm only using 2 units on him, like if I'm playing a faction like Gondor, I'll put points in fleeting moments so that these 2 units are evading all the damage over the first, during this round. So that can be helpful for you. There's just so many different ways you can use Gandalf, and I'm not going to take the time in this video to go through all of them. Um, so experiment with them, check them out. I mean, you really want to only be using White Council versus evil opponents, which when you're tiling early game, you're facing evil as a good player. So it can be helpful, but you, in general, to mitigate troop loss, you're going to want to go with the heal. This is a PvP versus evil build to counter things like Witch King and such. From an item perspective, I throw the Carver with Smite on him. Again, how you gear him really depends on what units you're using on him. This would be more of a melee kind of a build for him. If I'm using if I'm like I said, if like using Gondor as an example, or even Arnor, because when you're playing Arnor, you basically unlock the same buildings that you do as Gondor. So you're going to be starting basically with horses and spearmen and stuff like that. You're not going to have ranged units for a while. So buffing your ranged makes zero sense. So you're going to want to use something like this. This will help proc his heal a little bit more often through the smite, and it increases your attack for your men units, and it gives you might and focus. The scale mail, I just love. It's a great utility item. More might, more focus, more defense, mitigate more damage on your melee units. The bone mask, I put this trait on him just to kind of see what it does. I don't know. It might be interesting. Maybe I'll test that in Red Book later today. But I use the bone mask for the HP. More defense, more HP, and then pursuit. Pursuit harp, speed. Speed is nice, but really not the reason why I'm using this. Because, like I said, if you're playing like Arnor or Gondor early in the season, you don't have elves right away. But the focus is good for him for sure because he's a focus-based commander. So that's Gandalf. Let me know your thoughts on him in the comments. A2, I'm only going to talk through how I use A2 because I use him like a tool on a tool belt, and I use him to do one thing and one thing only, and that is hunt Witch Kings. Specifically, Witch Kings that are designed to maximize burn damage. They used alchemists. He is exceedingly good at slaughtering them. The Flay, fire protection, blinding barrier. I only use knights on him. If I put another unit on him, it's usually rams just to get trample so that he reduces defense even more. And then the Heath Lane for now, I mean, you can kind of check out different accessories. I like the HP because the HP plus the defense makes your knights more tanky. And the longer your knights stay alive, the more damage you can do with Aragorn. From a skill perspective, you're like, why didn't you max out Strider? Well, I think the 2% here difference isn't as valuable as maxing this out. Plus 20 speed with this maxed out is pretty super. Plus 20% skill damage is really nice. And most of his damage is from skills. Precise blow, you want this first because it goes through anything that has evasion due to the pursuit. Raid, call the weak, and then weapons expertise. Maybe I should reverse these. Let me know what you think. If I'm fighting good side opponents, I take this point out and I put it in here. This is just to make my knights stun immune against orcs and Uruk-hai. That's it. I mean, alchemists are Uruk-hai units, so it makes sense to do this when you're facing Witch Kings. Like I said, I primarily use him to hunt Witch Kings. Now, I can switch him. I can take this chest out. I can put the focus protection chest in. Do I have one? Yeah, here it is. And then all of a sudden he becomes more viable against commanders like Sauron or Galadriel. With the knights, same. But I only use knights. And the thing is, like I was talking about with Theoden, cavalry units cost more resources to conscript and take a long time. So if I have knights, I'm only usually banking about 3 or 4,000 of them just for Aragorn, and I need to have queues available to do that. Isildur. Now we're getting into the fun stuff. So I just got his unique, and it's super good. Uh, it buffs the HP of Rangers Dunedain and Rangers of the North by 6. It buffs the attack base stat of men and elves by 6. So this is a great replacement for a maxed out gigantic hammer, plus more might. The trait doesn't really come into effect much. If you're using his R5, then you're using men and elves. So it's the second piece here that's going to come into play. If you're not using the R5 and you go with an all men build, then this comes into play. Either way, the 15% chance is a very low proc rate, so it's not something that I would really count on. It's more of a nice to have. You're going to need to refine this item quite a bit to get anything out of either of these traits. Mithril coat with tactical maneuvers. It's huge. I don't know. The book is out. I don't. I'm testing to try to understand whether or not tactical maneuvers stacks with the R5 or not. Either way, I think it's incredibly strong on him. Cask a submerged isle with Aegis. Give him some immunity to stun and madness. 66.7% chance is viable. It's not optimal. Obviously, you want it maxed, but I need 5 more of these casks to do that. And then the pursuit fireworks increases ranged. So like I was saying, I like using him with a Dunedain build. I'll usually throw, at max level, I'll put like 3,000 Dunedains, 2,000 Rangers. So then he's got lots of anti-ranged up front. And then in the back, I'll fill the rest with Sentinels that will be leveraging this attack to ranged. So he'll be solid against both ranged and melee opponents, depending on the opponent. From a skill perspective, this is how I have him right now. There's a lot of different ways you can go with him. I'm just playing around with this because it forces your opponent to have to use Madness Immunity doing it this way. But you can take points out and put them in here and reduce the amount of damage your units take. Nothing wrong with that. If you're facing Gundabad or groups that use a lot of orcs, Uruk-hai, or trolls, you might want to consider Champion of the Light. Some people will take points out and throw it in Ring Bearer and Ring of Terror because it can inflict madness on the units and the commander, and it's over 2 rounds, whereas Consequence of Greed only affects units and it only goes off the first round. So there's a lot of different ways you can go with skill builds for him. This is just one of them. Coalition is nice. Highest damage is really solid. 75% chance to gain initiative each round. This is all 10 rounds, so it's solid. This is gonna be proccing 7 to 8 times per battle, which is significant in my opinion. So that's my Isildur. I'm really looking forward to using him as one of my mains next season. Not talking through Treebeard. Let's talk through Elrond next. He's my other main. Elven White Knife, Might of Elves plus 10%. I need one more of these guys to max this out to get this to 12%. And I'll be done with it forever. You can see I got 2 from sitting here. Urgh. Come on, Massam Gods. Hook brother up. Then you want the Ranger's Shroud. You want to use Elrond. You're going nuke on Elrond. Total nuke. As much damaged as possible. Specifically to ranged. Not sure if this is the best trait for him. Preferably, I would like to have resistance so that he mitigates damage, focus, burn, poison damage. But the defense isn't bad either because this will help reduce physical damage. And then Hunter's Guide with Aegis. Again, prevent yourself from blowing yourself up. More attack to ranged might focus. And then the Carved Dragon Tooth with Tactical Mark to get Pursuit over the first 3 rounds. 100% chance. Someone was saying in another video that I posted, they left a comment that Blitz might be better, and I disagree with that because the Blitz Dragon Tooth at 0-star refined, it's a 16.7% chance to proc. This is a 100% chance. So no, don't use the Blitz one. Blitz bad unless you have it fully refined. And that is going to take a long time, my friends, because the only place you can get this item is in the season store. From a skill perspective, this is another guy you can go a lot of different ways. So right now, this would be kind of like his total nuke build. And I would be facing more so good side opponents. If you're going against evil, you're going to want to put points in White Council, High Alert, and Champion of the Light. You definitely want Vilya. 25% damage increase just from that. The plus 15 focus is obviously nice too. Then you got Half Elven. You get 10% damage for each elf unit. You use 3 elf units, that's 30%. So 30 plus 25, that's 55% damage increase to elf units right off the bat just from those 2 titles. It's huge. How could you not want that? Then you go to this and you get Convener, which is where the nuke comes in. You get initiative the first 2 rounds no matter what. So initiative plus pursuit equals big boom. And a 75% chance for follow-up each round. So you could be hitting for like 20, 30,000 damage twice the first 2 rounds if you get follow-up to proc both rounds. It's absolutely disgustingly enormous. And then I just threw the extra points in here in case I'm going against somebody with, just a little bit more damage. You can do whatever you want with these points, really. And then you want Boon also, because guess what? Here's another plus 20% physical damage, or it's going to prevent you from receiving 20% damage. Whichever way this goes, it's a great skill. And then the Coalition is nice also. 75% chance to gain initiative all rounds outside of the first 2. So that is pretty good. I like Elrond a lot. I wasn't high on him before last season, but my Gil Galad, which I'm about to go through here, was just getting absolutely slaughtered by Gundabad. There's so many solutions for Gil Galad these days. Everyone has Pursuit to cut through his evasion, and the Gundabad T4 unit just absolutely makes Gil Galad completely worthless. So I've put leftovers on Gil Galad. I got a Mirkwood bow on him with elf strength. 4-2 to elves on the high elf hallberg. I changed this from resistance because I think mitigating 6% damage all the time is better than situationally mitigating whatever the percentage is of focus, burn, poison damage. I threw Hysteria on him, more attack to ranged, and more attack. And the defense here stacks 15 plus the 10. So he mitigates quite a bit of damage, physical damage, and he can deal some solid damage. But like I said, the book is out on Gil Galad. Everyone knows how to counter this guy now. So I don't recommend using him as a main, but he is still absolutely a phenomenal tiler. He has basically become the Witch King of the good side. Witch King can be good in PvP, but the book is out on him. So that's what I'm comparing them. Kingly Kin, this is where the evasion comes from, and then you get another plus 10 defense to elves there. It's really strong. And then plus 14 damage to all allied units. That's huge. You go over to High King. It reduces elf damage by 15%, and it gives them plus 3 HP. That's huge. Elves need HP. HP is the elves' weakness. Chaotic Retreat, I was talking about that with Theoden. It's broken. Elven Leader, 25% chance to gain follow-up. I see people who don't use this, and it blows my mind. I know 25% ain't sexy, but when it goes off, his damage is berserk. It's ridiculous. And you're using all elves on him, right? Heralds have counterattack. So they could go take their turn. This could proc, they hit another time. Then someone hits them, they counterattack, and then this could proc again. They could hit and hit and hit. You can do a lot of damage with heralds. Very unsung hero unit. You want to point an icicle so you get the stun minimally. and then the White Council. So this is kind of more of a balanced build, predominantly going to be used against evil. If you're facing a good side or a DD you're going to put more points in Icicle and go with the Dazzle build. So that's all of the commanders I wanted to talk through except Galadriel. Galadriel, I use Smite. Everyone uses Smite. You want Smite on her. The only other item you could potentially want as a weapon for her would be the Noldor sword with pretty much the same ability. I don't know what it's called on there, but it does the same thing. But it's just a higher focus damage effect. I just don't think it's worth spending the amount of money you need to spend to get that. You basically can get 80% of that item with the Carver at 20% of the cost. Scale mail, melee, vigor. I usually use either 1 or 2 units with Galadriel. If I have eagles, I'm giving her eagles. If I don't have eagles, I'm giving her guards of the tower. They're melee units, so it's great. She gets focus from this. She gets defense to the melee and the melee reduction. More focus for her, obviously. And then stun immunity. I like the stun immunity because a lot of times a popular counter for her is Gandalf, so this is pretty helpful, I think. Anyway, and then the worn out smoking pipe. Obviously, you want more focus and more heals for her. From a skill perspective, Nenya's Guardian, huge. 30% focus is huge, plus the 15 base stat, and then the big heal. And the magical barrier you add a little bit later to increase the damage, which is modified by focus. So you get a lot out of this. Mistress of Magic, this is huge. This is what makes her normal attacks now cause focus damage, and it increases her focus damage by 45%, which ain't no joke. You want to point and focus Wrath, because this is what inflicts madness in round 2 on one enemy target. Plus it does some damage as well. Effect modified by the focus stat. And then Surge. 150% focus damage twice. 2 separate targets. It's big. And then with leftover points, you can increase the recovery that your units receive, and then a couple points in here to add a second heal later. So that's my Galadriel. That's all the commanders I'm going to talk about today. Let me know what you think. I thank you if you've hung in there and watched the entirety of this video. This is a long one, even by my standards. So I apologize for making it super long, but I think that it's fun to talk through this amount of content and going through this level of detail for this many commanders all at once. So what I'll try to do a little bit later after I've posted the video is go through and find what times I do each commander, and I'll post those times in the description section so that if you want to hear my thoughts or how I use each of the commanders that I've discussed in this video, as well as just to have a table of contents for which commanders I go through, it'll be there at some point when I have an hour to rewatch my own video. Like I said, let me know what your thoughts are. If you have any comments, feedback, suggestions, put it all in the comments below, or feel free to reach out to me or Discord in game. I thank you all again so much for taking the time to watch this video. Take care of yourselves and stay well. Cheers.